Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Need I remind you, this is in fact a spoiler discussion. So, if you do not want spoilers for chapter 228 of Jujutsu Kaisen, I'm going to kindly request that you vacate the premises. However, if you are in fact intrigued with a discussion about the spoilers for chapter 228 of Jujutsu Kaisen, I welcome you. Now, let's hop into it.
Thank you to our $5 patrons, Red Wolf 4765, Midnight Gem Lord Sean, and Demix LNT. Another thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Wolf 4765. Another thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha and Idem Okami. And another very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. Before I'm in this breakdown slash I guess it's a live reaction. This is the first time. Well, actually, no, I did look at the spoilers real quick so I can actually know what I'm talking about. But before we hop into this breakdown / discussion of chapter 228 of Jujutsu Kaisen spoilers, please leave your own spoilers in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, that notifications to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon below, just for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. Once we guys up until here we are to do a live reaction and discussion to chapter 228 spoilers. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've seen the spoilers, if you see, y'all are so, when I tell you, y'all are so lucky. I have people visiting right now, and thusly I cannot get as loud and as active as I want to get. I tell you, I would be screaming to the heavens and back. They would hear me on Pluto. And not our Pluto, like a Pluto in another universe, because I am freaking and geeking right now. But let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Greetings. I have it on me, and I keep it on me. And I am like this close to drawing right here at the start. I'm like, just this is stuck in there. But let's not. I'm sorry. Let me keep my composure. You know, this is a true quality. Like, there's nothing at all happens in this chapter that makes me unbelievably happy. I swear. No. Nothing at all that has me remotely freaking and geeking, as the kids say these days. Is anyone? Where did I get that? I have no idea where I actually got that from. I have no idea if kids actually say. I don't think they do. I don't know. I'm old, but let's see. So the chapter opens up, and we do get to see the Pokeball barrier. I so wish I came up with the Pokeball stuff on my own. No, I definitely stole that from the entire community, because the whole community was saying, Gojo caught Sukuna, the legendary mythical Pokemon. I loved it. But we do open up with this little black hole basketball-sized domain, and the chapter opens up with someone saying that, oh, okay, I mean, it kind of makes sense, because the more you compress the barrier, the thicker the outer shell is going to be. Like, think about it, right? Because the wider you go with the barrier, the more thinly spread your cursed energy is. And that makes sense, right? Because you're spreading the same amount of cursed energy you would on any barrier, but you're making it giga. You're making it super thick, omega thick, if you will. But with this, you essentially get to take all that cursed energy that would be spread across, who knows, like a 10 meter, 20 meter radius, and compressing it down to the size of a basketball. And like, a basketball is not even half a meter long in terms of like height. Like a basketball, like I can nearly palm a basketball. Like, I think depending on my grip that day, I can legit palm a basketball. My hand is only like, what? I have no idea. Where's my ruler? My hand is 7.5. Okay, that's a lot. It's 8 inches. My hand is 8 inches long. I'm not lying. You can look. It's probably illegible, but I promise you, my hand is 8 inches long, and I can only palm a basketball. So like, as you can tell, 8 inches is not what a meter makes. So the fact that the domain is actually the size of the basketball should speak to how many more times durable it is because of how compact it is. Though that does leave a pretty interesting question. As it was shrinking, what was Sukuna doing inside there? Like, was he just getting caught off guard or something like that? Because realistically, when the domain was expanding to super giga size and Sukuna was expanding his domain's effective range, like maybe what Gojo did was, as Sukuna kept expanding, Gojo kept like making the barrier bigger and bigger to like keep it out of Sukuna's range, and I guess he instantly like shrunk it back down. But you would think in the middle of the shrinking process, since it was so large, Malevolent Shrine would have been able to shatter it. I know common sense won't prevail in the Battle of the Strongies, and I'm assuming I'll probably get like a more clearer explanation once the actual chapter comes out, but I really do wonder, like, how come Malevolent Shrine didn't just tear through the barrier before it got super duper durable? Like, I get why it doesn't tear through the barrier here, because it's going to be super duper durable inside this basketball size one, but there was the time when it was like as big as a building. But Malevolent Shrine didn't tear through it. I'm assuming that just has to do with the fact that Sukuna didn't open it to 200 meter range fully. I think that was a mistranslation from last chapter. But with that being the case, Kusakabe is like, dude, I'm getting sick and tired of saying this, but this is impossible. And Mimi is like, dude, how many times have we said it's impossible? And that is true. That is true. Because like, part of me doesn't like that, right? Like part of me that like likes good quality, like, oh, I can tell someone what's going to happen by previously established things. I prefer that in my writing, and common sense won't prevail in the Battle of the Strongest. And I mean, it's cool. It sounds like a really cool line. Does not excuse bad writing. However, what I will admit is I don't think this counts as bad writing based on what is said later in the chapter, because we go on to see that Kusakabe, as he's trying to explain why this legitimately should be impossible, he explains that trapping yourself in a domain inside a barrier with less mass than you would most likely make it collapse. But what happens is, Choso explains that the reason Gojo actually knows how to do this is because he was trapped in a domain with less mass than him. He was sealed in the prison realm for like, we still don't know what his frame of reference time-wise was. We have no idea what that was. I don't think it ever got clarified for us. Like, we know he was in there for, I think, almost a month. When did, I already forgot what day he got released on. Hold on, let me double check. Because he went in on the 31st. And then I believe, let me go to chapter 221 real quick. Because he specifically asked Kenjaku, what's today's date? So let me see. Sorry, I know I'm pulling out a different chapter as I'm talking about another one, but I just want to see. Let's see. What's today's date? What's the date? November 19th. So he was in there for 2 weeks and 5 days. But we don't actually know what his time frame of reference was. We never get that clarified in that chapter or in chapter going forward. So at bare minimum, lowballing it and assuming that the time frame was equal, he has 19 days of experience of sitting in a place with less mass than him, but simultaneously has enough mass to move. Like, that walking contradiction actually works. And to be fair, it does make sense. Like, I'm not sure if Kusakabe or Gege is doing this like unironically, or like it just happens to be a funny background, but the panel we see on the top where Kusakabe is explaining why this is impossible is Horizon of the Captivating Skanda, a domain that for all intents and purposes is way bigger than what should be implied by the size of its barrier. But that contradiction in space is allowed by the fact that domains are separate spaces, which is something that I was so confused about, and how Malevolent Shrine managed to interact with that. But I've managed to reconcile that as just, Malevolent Shrine kind of ignores whatever separate space you try to lock it in. It'll just apply to its spatial coordinates where Sukuna set it in the real world. But with that being the case, since Gojo has experience being compressed in a smaller space than himself, yet still having room to move, as we saw inside the prison realm, he does have that, or he did have that at least. He's now out. But with that, he's able to compress his domain like this unless he gets the benefits of a super duper omega compressed domain, which is the durability, because that's the big issue. As long as Gojo could neutralize Malevolent Shrine, it was literally just an amped battle of hands. and curse techniques. That's it. And the better thing is that Gojo, if he's in a scenario like this, where he is using domain and Sukuna is using domain, Sukuna has to use domain amplification to actually hit inside that dual domain barrier. Because if Sukuna can't tear the Unlimited Void Shrine, or not the Unlimited Void Shrine, if he can't tear the Unlimited Void barrier up with Malevolent Shrine, even if he enhances it because the barrier is super durable because of how tiny and compressed it is, then that means that inside he can't risk what he did last chapter, where he made contact with Gojo, shut down his sure hit inside the domain to negate Infinite Void, and try to expand or increase the outside, because that wouldn't work. Because all that power would still be able to be tanked by the more compressed barrier. So it essentially means that Gojo and Sukuna are simply running ones right now. But Gojo has the upper hand because he can still use techniques, while Sukuna can't if he wants to hit Gojo. And to be fair, there are definitely techniques that Gojo or Sukuna could still use, like the unknown ones. He could still use the fire, he could still use the 10 shadows, but it's clear that Sukuna is being a little bit reluctant for one reason or another to not whip those out. So with that being the case, Gojo has a clear upper hand in this. So that's very, very impressive. That's a pretty fat brain play from the strongest sorcerer. However, let's see. Kusakabe once again starts saying how they can change the domain's conditions, especially barriers, because it's a mix of a lot of conditions. And I love how the two domain spammers are like, are you sure about that? And to be fair, technically, since Kusakabe doesn't have his own innate technique, he created Symbol Domain, don't get me wrong. He should know a lot about domains, but like, you have one guy who reverse engineered a domain in like a week, and you have the other guy whose domain is so broken it literally can be spammed ad infinitum. Like, almost as badly as Infinite Void is being spammed right now. Hikari dropped how many domains in one day? Admittedly, it's because his cursed energy kept getting refreshed at the end of every round, but like, once against Bernard, and like 3 times against Kashimo. So I think Hikari is the current record holder for single use of domains in a day. Because, right, he did the first round, like, maybe he only did twice against Kashimo? I feel like he did it 3 times, but I may be misremembering. I think he was about to do it for a 3rd time, but then Kashimo tore his arm off. So, I don't know, but I do love how they question him. And that does make sense, though, because what Kusakabe says to counter their, like, disbelief that, oh, really, is it that many conditions to change, is that since their domains are essentially their technique, like, there's nothing really outside of their technique but their domains. I mean, Hikari can use the doors, and presumably he can use the balls in the real world, but it's just they don't do much. So everything is pretty much reliant on their domain, and thusly they sort of got to customize the rules for it as they pleased and as they wanted, and thusly they find it a whole lot simpler. But for people who have normal domains, which are really just an accent and extension of their main technique, it's pretty much unnatural for them to be able to just keep changing conditions on the fly. But once again, I go with what I said last chapter. I legit think that both Gojo and Sukuna, Gojo through the 6 eyes and Sukuna through sheer experience, simply view their domains as like an options menu in the video games. Size, you want it's like a volume slider. Do you want your domain to be really, really big? Do you want it to be really, really small? Okay, they can customize it just like that. Do you want the sure hit inside and outside your domain? Do you want it inside but not outside? Do you want it outside but not inside? They can choose a slider, or at least Sukuna can choose a slider on that one, in terms of like within a certain range versus outside a certain range. Gojo can't. He didn't unlock that. He's not in New Game Plus yet like Sukuna is, so thusly he didn't unlock that ability yet, but wait for it. He's cooking. And then pretty much every other customization option that they have, they can do that, simply due to, 1, the 6 eyes, which gives them all the information they need on their domain, most likely, and 2, Sukuna's just so experienced. Like, he's probably just like that. He probably just understands things about domains that we don't, because Sukuna's Sukuna. Don't let me, like, here's the thing. As a certified and licensed Gojo Glazer, trust me, I have not forgotten my roots. I'm a Sukuna slobber to this day. That's why I still think 15 Finger slams Yuta on his neck. But regardless, I think 15 Finger kind of slams the rest of the verse on its neck at the same time. But regardless, with that being the case, I do understand why Like Kusakabe is just so annoyed because, like, once again, he's kind of like me. He's expecting like some sort of logical consistency based on how rule-based the rest of the Jujutsu world is. But I suppose when you're looking down on the rest of the Jujutsu world as the strongest, what are rules but suggestions? What are past incidents but a nice little test run? Because the thing is, right, the big thing about this battle is that these are the only two who could really give something like this to each other. This kind of intense high-level battle. Because they've been the strongest either in Gojo's case for a little over a decade, like 13 years, I do believe, because he's 28 now. And then again, I forget, how old is he in Hidden Inventory? I don't remember. How old is he in Hidden? I think he's like 16 or 17. Is he a first year in Hidden, or is he a second? How old is Gojo? How old is Gojo in Hidden Inventory? Gojo's past arc. How old are you, Gojo? Satoru Gojo. Because Gojo's past arc. No. I just need Gojo. I don't need his past arc. I need just Gojo. How old was Gojo? No! Satoru. There we go. Satoru Gojo. So he's 28, 29. Now, oh, yeah, he's 29 now. So Hidden Inventory was 10 years ago? I don't know. But regardless, at least a decade of being the strongest. And Sukuna has literally over 1,000 years. Well, he was the strongest for some innocuous period of time before the 1,000-year time jump. Because I don't think Sukuna was conscious. Like, I don't think he was, like, sitting there in the fingers being like, I cannot wait to consume once again. Like, I don't think he was conscious. So, like, he was the strongest for a hot minute, too. So these two having this battle is probably fun for them. But with that being the case, we do get to see that even with the giga durability of the Omega barrier, or I suppose the Alpha barrier, like, it's super duper small, we do get to see the slashes do start to affect the outside of the barrier once again. So Sukuna did presumably alter the conditions of his domain one more time to, like, if I had to take a guess based on how tiny the slashes are, Sukuna probably took like a random guess of like how big Gojo made the barrier, and thusly he figured, okay, instead of broadening my cursed energy reach this much, I will literally make it, like, say this is the size of a basketball, he made it the size of a beach ball. Like the effective range of his domain, and thusly it's going to attack with more force because more cursed energy is being poured into that smaller area. In the same vein that the barrier itself is more durable because it's the same amount of cursed energy over a smaller area, I'm assuming Sukuna's attacks are more lethal because it's the same amount of cursed energy over a much smaller effective area. Because this is the smallest? I mean, presumably, we don't know because the whole, like, panel is lit up with a bunch of different slashes, but who knows? Maybe this really is just like a 2-foot, like a 2-foot long malevolent shrine, which may make it the smallest. I really wish we could have seen what happened inside the domain. I really do. I'm sorry, bro. You just sweating again. And I love it. I love it. Angel saying something, let's see. Then Gojo's domain barrier starts to tremble heavily. You don't really realize that even Sukuna must have adjusted the shrine's range to small to enhance output. Yeah, okay. So what I basically just said. All right. See? Me and Yuta, we just like that. We the same. That's a lie. That is a lie. Yuta's braver than me. I would have left. But with that being the case, we do get to see that apparently the way that things ended up working out here, according to Mei, is that Gojo may have tried to cover Malevolent Shrine's whole range, the whole thing, thusly so that Sukuna couldn't actually, like, just go big. Because even if the external barrier is super duper fragile, a barrier is a barrier. If both of their sure hits are canceled out, then it's back to the scenario that should be happening right now inside the mini domain, where Gojo has access to full techniques and everything, but Sukuna only has access to domain amplification. That could be it. But even still, that may not be enough. And thusly, things could be getting a little bit active in there. And with that being the case, this little compressed space, even if it did like change the spatial coordinates, causing malevolent shrine needing to be adjusted, it could hypothetically withstand it, but it's not what happens. So I will admit, because people have been like, you've just been glazing Gojo. You're a Gojo glazer. You're licensed. You're certified. All that. Get off his meat. And okay, I'll back off. In terms of domains, even after this chapter, Gojo's like, what? 2-0-1? No. He's 0-2-1. Because he lost 2. And then he ties with this last one. Like, he does straight tie with this last one. So, I'll admit, Sukuna's been, like, I'm going to make a video, especially after this chapter, because this is interesting. Because, I'm about to get blasphemous. Like, we're right at the end of the chapter, so I'm about to get blasphemous. If you know the spoilers, I'm about to get blasphemous. But, I will admit, you're going to hear me say it now, and I'm going to make the video talking about it. Sukuna has been in control of this battle. There's no other way to put it. Sukuna has been in control of this battle. Gojo, I mean, to be fair, Sukuna has been reacting to a lot of what Gojo does, whether it be Infinite Void or the usage of Infinity or Purple or stuff like that. Sukuna has been consistently reacting, but he's been reacting well. Like, every single time Gojo catches him off guard, Sukuna pretty much instantaneously bounces back. And once again, this Malevolent Shrine is the first one he summoned. It's not like it never broke. It never stopped. It just kept getting its conditions altered. So, clearly, Sukuna is still him. However, we see as the basketball barrier shatters and space seemingly resets, like the shrine reappears, Sukuna reappears, Gojo reappears, all that. We see Gojo looking on, eyes wide open. He looking mad hard, too. He's studying. Sukuna's shrine also starts to fall apart, piece by piece. So, that's crazy. That's the thing. I do wish we got to see what happened inside the domain. Because something happened that caused Malevolent Shrine to break down. When Sukuna was thrown into it by Reversal Red, it at best, like, maybe dented the shrine, but it didn't stop it. Sukuna was still able to just keep it pushing. When inside Infinite Void, well, to be fair, it makes sense that the shrine would not be affected by Infinite Void. The shrine doesn't have a brain. But all that different kind of pressure that Gojo put on it, worthless. But something he did inside that domain was enough to cause the shrine to collapse. That's a little bit crazy. Like, that's a little bit insane. And with that being the case, Gege is killing me with these reactions, bro. He's killing me with these reactions, bro. Why does he look like that? The main one I'm referencing here is Kashimo, bro. Like, I guess because after Kashimo was like, hey, I'm gonna get active. And he heard me, like, I swear, it feels like he heard me because he's looking like, do I not have to get active? But we see that after this, Gojo managed to pull it out. He didn't actively destroy this. He didn't like hit the shrine with a purple, and that's why it's collapsing in itself. He didn't hit the shrine with a red or a blue or anything like that. He didn't do anything too fancy. All he did was likely pull back with the finger spligaki, and he did enough extreme damage to Sukuna that the domain shut down. So, and a big thing I want to note here is that when you see Gojo in this chapter, until a little later on, he has no damage on him. None. Like I'm not sure how long they were inside this little mini basketball barrier, but Gojo has not a scratch on him. But Sukuna, 19, okay, I'll give it to you. 19 fingers, but 20 finger worth of cursed energy Sukuna? That Sukuna is like bro is coughing it all up all over the place. And he's got a gaping chest wound. What did Gojo hit that man? Like legit, I'm wondering. Cause like This raised the question. Was that a red? That has to be a red, right? Mainly because I think it's too small for a purple. Because specifically, it's not like one of Sukuna still has both of his arms. Like, let me see. Yeah, Sukuna, he still has both of his arms. Both of his legs are still intact. And it is a wound, little like right here. Like, it is centered on his chest. And the only thing we've seen that pinpoint from Gojo is red, right? Because, I don't know, unless he, like, did a miniature purple. Like, unless, I mean, maybe he could. We know it's possible to miniaturize techniques. Like, Uzumaki. We got many Uzumakis from Kenjaku. That is a thing that we've seen before. But I feel like a miniature purple, if it was going to do that much damage to Sukuna, I feel like it would have torn a hole in his back. But his back is still intact. Like, notably, it seems like, yeah, like his whole back is just fine. It's purely intact. So it feels like, to me, what Gojo likely ended up doing was that he got in real close, took two fingers, because the thing is, I think Gojo has, admittedly, even with Sukuna having, in my opinion, the upper hand for a majority of this fight, I still think Gojo was testing what worked against Sukuna. The opening 200% purple, seeing if Sukuna could take purple. And it seems like he could, but it also seems like Sukuna had to dodge a majority of it because of the way it tore off his arm. What I'm assuming is when Sukuna went like this to try and block purple, it hit his right arm first. He realized, oh no, it's tearing through me, and then he dodged the rest of it. I don't think he actually, like, face tanked it with his, well, obviously he didn't face tank it, his face was fine. I don't think he arm tanked it. It was like, whew, and then the purple, like, dissipated. I don't think that's what happened. I think he did just dodge a majority of it. So Gojo knows, okay, purple works. Purple works on this guy. Good to know. And then what ended up happening was Gojo pulled up with reversal red. And he saw that reversal red was enough to at least, and like a fresh, no power up, no load reversal red, just reversal red off the fingertips was enough to like tear Sukuna's face off a bit. He noticed that. And he realized that, okay, one way or another, Sukuna has a counter to Infinite Void. That is just it. He does have a counter to Infinite Void. In every single way, shape, or form, no matter what I do, Sukuna knows his way around it. Whether it be through just making his barrier attack my, or his barrierless domain attack my barrier. Whether it be altering the conditions of his barrier. Whether it be keeping in contact with me so the Infinite Void sure hit doesn't take effect. He knows how to deal with Infinite Void. So thusly, I'm assuming what happened in this super compressed domain where, once again, Gojo was the only one with direct access to his techniques if he wanted to do damage, unlike Sukuna, who had to rely on domain amplification. What ended up happening was, in one of their many exchanges, we've seen these two consistently go to fisticuffs. They always go to fisticuffs. I'm assuming what Gojo probably did, Sukuna probably swung, Gojo deflected, pulled out the fingers, and boom, straight in the chest. And since it was probably more concentrated and focused, plus the domain amp, because remember, you do get that stat buff within domains, it was probably enough to actually do some serious damage to Sukuna. Though, interestingly enough, I know it's going to sound crazy.
I didn't get that.
It always does that. But, interestingly enough, I don't, like, this is lethal damage, right? Like, I'm not saying, if I were to halfway Akaza Rengoku you and like just put my hand in your chest, it would be a pretty lethal amount of damage. But like, there's actually, I mean, to be fair, like your sternum is important, but like this area doesn't have many vital organs. Like your lungs aren't up here, they're down here in your rib cage. That's where they're protected, and like they're behind your pectorals, and your heart's like over here. Like your heart is also on the left side of your body. So I guess Sukuna just took extreme, like his sternum got blown open. Because once again, his back is intact. It'd be one thing if we got to see that like Gojo pierced straight through Sukuna with a red, because I'm still assuming it's a red. I don't think it's purple, because purple probably would have torn straight through Sukuna. But even still, that's pretty crazy that was enough to like damage Sukuna to the point where he had to drop domain. Because I'm presuming it happened so quickly that Sukuna couldn't just heal it off. Like, the big thing with Gojo and Malevolent Shrine that made it so impressive is that he was spamming RCT quick enough that the slashes couldn't slash him apart, which is super duper impressive. But it seems like Gojo, and this does make sense because Gojo did mention it in chapter 226 or 220, 227. No, it wasn't 227. I think it was 226 or 225. The whole, oh, I guess in regards to Kurt's technique, I'm overwhelmingly stronger. And I guess that proves true here. Because realistically, if Sukuna couldn't immediately like heal as this was happening to him, unlike Gojo who could immediately heal while he was being torn apart by 1,000 cleaves. I don't know, Sukuna. That is looking a little bit fraudulent. But of course, Sukuna would never be a fraud, right? he would never have to resort to using someone else's technique, right? Right? Like, he's the king of curses, right? Strongest, unrivaled in the Heian period, right? Shrine was all he needs to beat Gojo, right? Right? Yeah? Right, people? I need Nabarro to hurry up and soul residence this dude. Get him out of there. But with that being the case, we see that everyone on Team Gojo is losing their mind. Kashimo. Once again, I do have people visiting, and I'm recording super early in the morning, so I'm not gonna freaking geek. But Kashimo, if you unfold your arm, yo, bro's got me like, bro, why? See, this is what happens when you're too tall for your darn camera. But hold on, like, bro, why are you posted up like this? Stop it. How your arms are literally gonna be sore by the time you have to get active, bro. Like, bro's really posted up like this. Like, dog, stop, bro. It's okay. Get a little bit happy. Like I get it. Over this month period, which we didn't get to see, I highly doubt Kashimo and Gojo like actually interacted. Like, I do love the memes that the whole reason that Gojo's fighting first is because Gojo low dipped Kashimo real quick. That is hilarious to me. But even with that being the case, like, bro, be a little bit like he looks annoyed. Like, as Hikari's getting hyped up, Kirara's hugging him from the side. Then again, I can't even get mad at Kashimo. Why am I mad at Kashimo? Because Mei's also posted up like she's about to do something. Like, she's also like, bruh, both of you, chill out. Get your arms like crossed. Though I suppose they are a bit more wary, right? Because they know that at least if I had to take a guess, they know that Sukuna hasn't done everything yet. They know Sukuna has more in the bag. So them being a little bit perturbed makes sense. But obviously this is still a massive moment. This is a massive dub for Gojo because this is the first, it's, once again, this sounds bad, but this is the first domain clash he's tied. He didn't win. He did not win. Like don't even get it twisted. I'm not saying Gojo won, but he actually managed to beat Malevolent Shrine. Though admittedly, it doesn't really matter all too much. At least in my opinion. Like, Sukuna takes a certain path at the end of the chapter that I would dare say is a little bit fraudulent. But with that, even with that being the case, like, worst came to worst, Sukuna could just open it again. Like, I'm not sure, considering Sukuna does have limited cursed energy, but I'm not sure how many domains Sukuna could open in a day, but I feel like he could open another one and just force Gojo into the same situation again. Heal himself off and just keep going. But I guess he knows. We'll see. Because just as Sukuna destroyed Gojo's barrier from the outside, Gojo also dealt enough damage to Sukuna so that Sukuna couldn't maintain his domain. And we see both of the strongest grinning at each other. And obviously, Sukuna's immediately healing himself up. Gojo, I mean, I would have at least pressured him a little bit. Like, I would have just stood there and let him heal up. I know you don't have your technique right now, and you're probably using RCT to immediately restore that. But especially considering you have no damage on you, Gojo, why are you just standing there and watching him heal? Like, dog, get active. Like, there's this massive amount of lack of activeness. Some of y'all need to go hop in the gym or something. Like, some of you need to get active. Because, Gojo, why are you just like Gay's been drawing Gojo real funny these past couple chapters, but like for live reenactment, because once again, I don't know what you're seeing over here, but it's not panels from the spoilers because I'm still scared of YouTube. But Gojo's literally looking like that's what he's looking like right now as he's watching Sukuna RCT himself up. Like, bro, just go get active. But he's not getting active, and we do get to see that Gojo he's feeding just a little bit, but then questions start to be raised, right? Because like Higuruma goes on to say, well, since both Sukuna and Gojo's domain collapse, both of them can't use curse techniques. And Maki says that, you know, well, Gojo can heal his curse technique with RCT like he did last time. And Angel says, okay, yeah, but since he showed that he could do that, you know Sukuna can do that. And yeah, and I still do think that is what happened. Like when he goes from domain to fire arrow, I do think he did. If the domain was closed, which I think it was, if the domain was closed and then he started to fight Mahoraga afterwards, I think he did just before Mahoraga could finish regenerating, he instantly healed his curse technique and then fired off the fire arrow. If I had to take a guess, that's what I think happened. So obviously, that's what I mean when I say the two could just immediately get active once again. Like, there's no real reason for Sukuna to be worried if he has the cursed energy to spare. If he does, just straight up open domain again. Okay. Force go. Like, the thing is, we've been talking, and I've been talking specifically, like, hold on, let your boy liquidate real quick. I've been talking mad spooky, ladies and gentlemen. I've been talking mad spooky. And the reason I've been talking mad spooky is because I've been saying, yo, Gojo, just stall, bro. Like if you really want to win, if you guaranteed want to win, just stall. Keep having him burn CE. Keep having him burn CE by doing low-cost CE things and just abuse him. Like, straight up. If I'm gonna keep saying it, I'm literally planning a video how I would beat Sukuna as Gojo, and then I'm gonna do a counter video how I would beat Gojo as Sukuna. But with that being the case, one of my biggest win cons for Gojo before this fight ever started was him simply leaving Malevolent Shrine. Just dip, just remove just vacate the premises, and then have Sukuna waste all that cursed energy on Shrine, have him destroy a 200-meter part of Shibuya or Shinjuku or wherever you're fighting, and then leave. And then have Sukuna chase, and then try to open another domain, because he can't do anything without domain. Because that's another thing. Even with domain amplification, Gojo hasn't done... Sukuna did no damage to Gojo with domain amplification. Like, Gojo respected the hits, but it's not like they actually did all too much in terms of, like, actual damage. So it's clear to me that Gojo's tanky enough that he can take Sukuna's physical hits. So Sukuna's only real win con is domain, because everything else would just bounce off infinity. Any technique stuff would just bounce off infinity. So, with that being the case, there's no real reason for Gojo to actually have to... Ironically enough, what Gojo says, Gojo really is being the challenger right now, despite what he said to Sukuna. Sukuna is the challenger. Sukuna's the one who needs to figure out a way to work around Gojo's abilities. But it's Gojo who's been being the aggressor and trying to figure out how to work around Sukuna's abilities, which feels a little flipped. Does make Gojo seem more like the challenger. So I don't know, Gojo. That was a little bit hypocritical. But with that being the case, we do get to see that with the ability to split himself into 20 fingers and, like, escape death, essentially, and shatter his soul and be just fine, relatively, like, it's not simple, obviously most people can't do it, but a relatively simple technique like restoring one's cursed technique after using domain, it's easy enough for the strongest sorcerer of the Heian period. So it makes sense why they aren't even really all too impressed that the domains are shut down. However, with that being the case, we do get to see that the two do get active. And once again, I am liking this kind of activity more. This feels like one of the biggest... side tangent. One of the biggest things that I loved about both Sendai and Tokyo 1? I forget which colony that Hikari and Kashima fought in. But one of the biggest things I liked about both of those battles was the scale. Like, Earl was throwing Yuta into buildings. Ryu was erasing city blocks. They were, like, obviously the triple domain. They were doing crazy things in that battle. Kashima and Hikari were throwing around shipping crates and punching through them. Like, that kind of activity is something I really wanted to see once again within the Battle of the Strongest, and this is where we really start to get it. Because as Sukuna lunges into the air to get active on Gojo, and Gojo looks up at Sukuna, we see, boom, they both immediately start running and dashing, and their dashes literally tear apart the world that they're fighting in. And they just keep moving and bobbing and weaving, and they're just clearing these massive distances with their movements, and I love that. I call it limited superhuman mentality, where, like, it's not Dragon Ball, where, like, you get so large scale that, like, I couldn't even really comprehend it. Like, they're shaking the entire infinite world of void. Cool. That's great for scaling. And it sounds cool. I have no idea what that means. But like seeing these two humanoid beings shatter buildings and like create gigantic gaps in the road by simply moving and releasing their techniques, yeah, I can picture that. And that's really, really cool. And we do get to see Sukuna leaps, but I can't tell. It looks like he RCT'd earlier, but I guess he couldn't like clean himself up a little bit. Like Gojo, who went from being torn to pieces, is 100% clean now. Like there's not even a single drop of the life stuff on his sheer satin white pants. Like there's not a single bit, but Sukuna still has that like hole in his chest. So I wonder if that's having the same effect. Like remember, Ume flat out mentioned that when they got hit by Gojo, like they just straight up couldn't heal it. Like even with RCT all this time later, it was still hurting. So maybe Gojo did something similar to Sukuna here, where like he's just pulsing in pain with the chest. Like straight up, he RCT'd it off, but like the pain still lingers. Something that Gojo did, like on some literal I'm gonna attack his molecules type beat. On the atomic level, beyond where RCT can really affect, Gojo did some damage with what I assume still is a red, which is really, really neat. The fact that Sukuna's taken seemingly permanent damage. But with that being the case, I love it because now Sukuna once again is kind of on the run because Gojo's the one stomping the ground, seemingly using his curse technique to send up debris, whether it be blues and then repelling with reds towards Sukuna. You literally see Sukuna looking at debris inches away from his face as they're about to slam him. And you see that once again, it looks like, I can't tell exactly what happens here. I think maybe Sukuna, because they're impact lines around the chest wound, but the debris that were right in front of his face get pushed to the side. So I'm assuming Sukuna simply deflected them. And then Gojo pulls up, he reels back with his right foot, and then immediately swings. Sukuna blocks, eats the hit, and then with that, Sukuna gets sent flying back. But he is once again still able to maintain himself. He doesn't take too much damage. And after that kick, Gojo starts to wonder why Sukuna's not using his other curse technique, the 10 Shadows, and he's just sticking to Shrine. In fact, sorry, your boys. Sorry about that. Your boy needs to stay hydrated. Stay hydrated, folks. But he mentions that until his domain was destroyed, Gojo had the lead against Sukuna for almost 3 minutes. So I wonder why Sukuna is taking such a risky option. Like, why at this point would you not whip out another curse technique? Even if it's not the 10 Shadows, why not whip out another one? And we see that it's something. No. Not even that. Hey, Sukuna fans, is this your man's? He couldn't beat Gojo on his own. So what does Sukuna resort to? What does Sukuna resort to, ladies and gentlemen? Ryomen Sukuna, the king of curses himself, realizes that he cannot beat the strongest sorcerer with his shrine, with his technique. So he rings up Mahoraga, the divine general of the 10 Shadows technique. Now, so don't. Once again, people are still asleep where I am, so you're lucky I'm not screaming through the moon. But likely in the review, I will be screaming through the moon. But with that being the case, I am not one of the people who believes that Sukuna was not using Shrine, or he was only using Shrine out of pride. I think Sukuna genuinely believed he could beat Gojo without using any borrowed techniques. I think so. I think he just did. I think he did 100% believe that. And he's just that he was proven wrong here. And he needed to rely on something else other than Shrine. But that admittance tells me, I don't know, the fact that he doesn't use Flame, he doesn't open another box, he doesn't do anything else. No, he resorts straight to 10 Shadows, in my opinion, is direct admittance that Prime Sukuna, Heian era Sukuna, would have lost to Gojo. The fact that he needs to use a recently acquired technique and not one of the ones he's built up over his 1,000-year-long existence, that's low-key kind of admittance to me, y'all. I don't know any other way to put that. That just does seem to me that Sukuna's admitting that, hey, I'm like that, but I ain't that like that, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, it really does bring a smile to my face. But that is crazy. But notably, the thing is, there are a couple things to note here. Number one, while Sukuna does use the wheel, it's still shrouded in darkness. Sukuna himself hasn't been wielding the wheel, which means Mahoraga shouldn't have adapted to anything. But it seems like Sukuna's about to yank Mahoraga out. And number two, I think Gojo is starting to reach his limits. Starting to. Because we got to remember, as powerful as Gojo is, he has been abusing everything in his kit to the utmost extreme. 3 infinite voids. 2 of which with consistently varying conditions and levels of curse energy and all the stuff like that. He's been using the 6 eyes to the maximum to understand, read, and predict and react to Sukuna's techniques. He's been he threw out a 200% hollow purple, throwing out reds, throwing out blues left and right most likely, and even using telekinesis and stuff like that. He's been doing a lot. And we got to remember, one of the biggest things for the 6 eyes and one of the biggest dangers that was mentioned for him long ago was the fact that it's a little bit overwhelming to do that back to back to back all at once like that. So he's starting to see the after effects of it. And as Sukuna starts to get active with his second major technique, from Shrine to the 10 Shadows, the wear and tear is starting to actually take effect on Gojo. So it seems like Sukuna's longevity may just win out here. He may be able to outlast Gojo, especially if Gojo makes the mistake, because this would be an honest mistake, especially when his brain is getting tired. It would be an honest mistake to, let a certain thing happen. And that would be him using the Limitless on either, if Sukuna spawns the wheel above his head, using any variation of the Limitless on Sukuna will then make Mahoraga immune to the Limitless. That would spell Gojo's downfall. Or if he summons Mahoraga directly, like he just straight up drops Mahoraga on him and tries to run off and heal whatever, then if Gojo uses anything but purple, in my opinion, he's lost. And I know it sounds crazy coming from a Gojo Glazer, but that's the big issue. If he uses anything but purple around start, he's lost. That's the big fat issue here. So I'm very interested to see. We have no break next week. It's going to be on and popping next week. So I'm very intrigued to see where this goes, because it's going to get chaotic. However, shock horror, I literally went and got a different sword. Shout out to the dark sword. But I went and got a different sword. So if you are wondering, yes, in fact, this chapter is more than worthy. And I'm super duper hyped to get the official translate, or not even the official, just a language I can read. I'm excited to get that that translation. And I'm excited for next week too. This is gonna be very, very interesting, because this is the main thing I wanted to see. I wanted to see a Limitless 6 eyes user versus a 10 Shadows user. And now we're starting to get that. So the battle of the strongest is evolving to a new level. And I'm excited. However, that's what I think. Please know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure the notifications to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon below, so for as low as $1 down month. Continue exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, now we have a Maryland channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off.